Well, listen, let me go ahead and tell you why you need to pay attention to this video. I am talking to the hypersensitive. I was going to say overly sensitive, but I know that might offend some people. I am talking to the hypersensitive woman, and I'm putting myself out there because I can fall into that category. But I want to tell you why this is important to you. If you are the hypersensitive woman, you need to understand we've been talking about what it means to elevate your life. And you cannot elevate your life if your emotions are running the show. But I also want to talk to the woman who has somebody like that in your life. You want to pay attention to this because this might help you know how to engage with them better. So I want you all to stay tuned all the way to the end of this conversation so that you can get your takeaways. All right, if this is your first time here, I am Robin May and I'm super excited that you're here. Listen, around here, we are being intentional about elevating not just what we do, but who we are. If you've been hanging with me for a while, you know what to do. Grab a journal, go put on your fuzzy socks, get something good to drink because we are going there. Have I introduced myself? In case I haven't, my name is Robin May. I am a licensed therapist and executive coach, and I am committed to helping women just like you, say it with me, elevate not just what you do, but who you are. So, again, today our conversation is about that woman. You're not crazy, but you might be hypersensitive. You might have heard the term hyper independent. If you haven't, just know hyper independence, hyper dependency, hypersensitivity, all of it is pretty much a trauma response in some way or the other. But today we're talking about the hypersensitive woman. Now, I always say this because I am a woman of a certain age. Yes, I am over 50 now. You know, I don't like when I'm having to tell my age on one of the like an internet something and I have to scroll several times to get down to my age. That's problematic. But thank you, Lord, that I'm on this side of heaven. We're 50 now. And so I always tell you all I have to have my notes in front of me because if not, I will follow the rabbit trails. I'll follow butterflies. I'll chase butterflies. I'll be going somewhere else. So I have my notes in front of me. And we are again talking about the woman who is hypersensitive. And what I mean by that is the woman who um, feels herself being overly emotional in tough conversations or even just in any conversation, you emote a lot. And here's the thing there's nothing wrong with being tapped into your emotions, there's nothing wrong with being a woman who feels deeply. The problem is what you may not realize when you overly emote, when you are hypersensitive, you could be unintentionally holding those in your life hostage because they can't fully express what they want to express, they can't fully articulate what they are experiencing because how you emote can hold them hostage. They can begin to feel, I'm already deep into the conversation, it could cause those that you're doing life with to feel as if they can't articulate themselves to you because you're going to react or become overly reactionary. You're going to um, have a lot of emotion behind it. Now, I am actually talking about the woman who tends to cry very easily. Somebody says, "Hey," to you, honey, you start crying. You feel very deeply, or you're telling people you hurt my feelings. Somebody's always hurting your feelings. Don't worry. I have been that woman before. So I'm not here to judge you, okay? I have grown in this area, but I have definitely been that woman and I can still be that woman sometimes. I have to be intentional about managing my emotions, and we're going to get into what I mean by that. But also know that being overly emotional doesn't even always mean crying. It could be the person who will pop off, start cursing, be ready to fight at any drop of a hat. That is the same thing as being overly emotional. But today I'm talking specifically about the woman that's hypersensitive. And so I want you to be clear that I am not talking about you not being emotionally aware. I want you to be emotionally aware, but I am wanting you to be able to manage your emotions. And so there is a difference between emotional intelligence and hypersensitivity. And so when I talk about being the type of woman who can manage your emotions, let me very quickly, like I've done several times, define emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is the ability to identify what you feel and manage your feelings. Let me go to that again. Emotional intelligence is a two-lane highway. The lane I want to focus on first is the ability to articulate what you feel, to action to that. Because often people are saying that they feel a certain kind of way, but they're really giving a thought. Emotional intelligence is being able to articulate how you feel. And let me help you with this. There are way more feeling words other than pissed off. There are way more feelings words than I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm upset. You want to be able to think about the range of emotions. Let me see how many of you are paying attention. I always tell y'all to DM me because I spend a lot of time on Instagram. My Instagram is in the description. Let me see how many of you are paying attention to me, and I might give you some kind of prize. I'll be giving prizes when y'all DM me. I might give you a certain prize. Maybe I'll give you a certain percentage off of my online store. How about that? I don't know what percentage, but just DM me and say, Robin, send me a feelings chart. Send me a feelings chart. I'll know you paying attention to this video. And so I want you to get a feelings chart and begin to look at the full range of emotions. So again, we're talking today about the woman that's hypersensitive, but I am not telling you not to be emotionally aware. Emotional intelligence is a two-lane highway. The lane first is being able to articulate how you feel. I feel this way, but being able to manage your feelings, not allowing your feelings to run the show. You know how to regulate your feelings. You can emotionally regulate. And sometimes life has been so difficult that we lose the ability to emotionally regulate. And that's something we have to rebuild that skill. Your nervous system might be shot. And so it's very hard for you to regulate your emotions. And so it might sound easier said than done, but of course it is. That's a cop out a lot of times when we say, well, it's easier said than done. Of course it is. But as intelligent and elevating women, we have to be able to do it. But I have to tell you, remember, I said emotional intelligence is a two-lane highway. Lane one is being able to articulate how you feel and regulate your feelings. But I want to make sure that I also tell you, lane two is the ability to be sensitive to but not responsible for the feelings of others. I can be sensitive to how other people are feeling, but I'm not necessarily responsible for how they feel. Now, that can be easily manipulated. Somebody DM me and say, Robin, do a whole segment on emotional intelligence. I think it's one of my podcasts, but I can do it here as well. That's another way for you to get a prize from me. DM me and tell me, I want to know more about being sensitive to, but not responsible for the feelings of others. Okay. So when we are talking about being hypersensitive, we are understanding that there's a difference between having emotional intelligence, which is awareness and regulation, versus being hypersensitive, where your emotions are in the driver's seat. And so when you are hypersensitive, it's like your emotions or your response to things makes the smallest slight a huge issue. Somebody can say the smallest thing, and your reaction is not comparable to the trigger because you have not learned to regulate your emotions. And I know what you're saying. You're saying to yourself, but Robin, how do you know? How do you know whether or not this thing that was said to me doesn't equal my response? We're going to talk about that soon. I'm going to give you some things or some strategies to help you identify whether this is speaking to you. But sis, you already know. You already know. As you're listening, you're like, okay, Robin, I think you might be talking to me today. So again, when you're hypersensitive, it makes everything feel like a threat. You get a text message and you feel anxious. Somebody gives you the slightest look and you feel anxious. Somebody says, "Hey, can we talk later?" and your heart starts beating really fast because you feel super sensitive to any little thing. And not only that, do you feel that? I want you to understand what we're talking about. Not only do you feel that, but you also project that. You feel it and you project it. And so what happens again is it causes the people who love you, it causes the people who are doing life with you, it can cause them to feel as if they have to walk on eggshells. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. So, what do we need to do? What is the hostage effect? I call this the hostage effect. Remember, I said when you are the person who is hypersensitive, it can make people who are in relationship with you feel taken hostage by your emotions because they never know if the wrong thing they say is going to land the wrong way. And so what begins to happen is that people around you feel like they have to carry your emotions. They have to monitor their tone. They have to monitor their delivery. They have to make sure that they are presenting it in a perfect package. They avoid correcting you or challenging you. They don't know if this is the right time to say something or if this is not the right time. They sometimes choose peace over honesty. You might, if you happen to ask for their feedback, they choose peace over honesty. Now, this is a range, right? As I'm talking about this and I'm saying, is this you? You might say, well, Robin, I do this and I don't do that. And that's okay because even as I am talking about it, I am admitting that I have been that woman that was super, super sensitive. Any little thing would hurt my feelings. But I also was a woman that my close friends could still say something to me. They would just put a lot of disclaimers in there to say it. So they didn't feel necessarily hostage, but they did know, Lord, it's going to hurt Robin's feelings. And so I don't want you to negate this conversation because all of these points don't apply to you. But I want you to know that if enough of them do, it's worth considering, right? So, for example, your friend may be avoiding telling you the truth. Your spouse might be avoiding having that tough conversation. Your coworker might see you doing something that is going to end up backfiring on you, but they're like, I ain't going to say nothing because the last time I did, she or he had an attitude. And so you might find unknowingly or knowingly that people are walking around on eggshells. And so what we want to do is recognize when you are hypersensitive, that really becomes your own self sabotage because you, again, have not learned to increase your emotional intelligence. And listen, we don't have to beat ourselves up about this. We don't have to see this as something that is not fixable, right? We just need to increase, just like you increase your money knowledge, your wealth knowledge, you've increased your money knowledge over your life, you learn new skills on a new job. This is the same thing. We're just identifying. Remember, over here we are focused on growth. We do not have a fixed mindset. We believe in elevating not just what we do but who we are. And so as I'm talking through this, it's okay. It just means that this is an area where you might be self-sabotaging and you don't even realize it, and you might be convincing yourself everybody is out to get you. Everybody trying to everybody is hating. Are you one of those? Everybody just hating on me. Are you one of those people? This might be about you. Okay. So I'm gonna give you some points to let you know if this is you. I think I have 7 points here. I think I just have seven. Let me see. Yeah. No, I have six. Okay. Here are some things that might help you know if this is you. You assume without asking. You assume without asking. You already assume a person's intention instead of asking. And so what happens is that sensitivity fills in the gaps, and you're convinced that somebody meant something that they may not have meant. You take correction as rejection. When somebody gives you feedback, it feels like a threat. What's so interesting is I was having a conversation with somebody about this recently, and as we talked through it, this person was able to actually, it's been several people, they've been able to recognize, wait a minute, when I hear a correction, when it lands with me, remember when I talked about emotional intelligence being a two-lane highway, and I said lane number one was being able to identify how you feel and regulate how you feel. But then lane number two is being sensitive to, but not responsible for the feelings of others. What often happens is when somebody says something, it goes through your filter. You see, I have on these glasses. And so I'm seeing things through the filter of these glasses. When I take off the glasses, why do I have them on? I can see the screen clearly. I can't see anything on my notes. So I have to put on my glasses because filters for me. It increases what I am seeing. And so when somebody says something to you, you have a mental filter. So they say something and it goes through your filter. That's why you have to recognize triggers are more about you. It's not about that person. Because when you are triggered, it's because something was said or done that is going through your mental filter and it's landing with you a certain way. One of my daughters, her filter is just, she just doesn't trip about too much of anything. So they will say something to her, and I know they're being shady. And we'll say which daughter. Daughter, ain't tripping about that. I'm like, you need to be. Filter might be opposite way. But when you hear something and somebody's giving you feedback, if you automatically hear it as a critique, if you hear feedback as a critique or um as a negative critique, let me say that, if you hear it as somebody trying to comfort you, this might be along the lines for you. In other words, you take correction as rejection. Somebody's making it about you as a person and not just what you're doing. Or here's number three, you over personalize neutral moments. Normal reactions or normal interactions become like an emotional ambush to you. So you over personalize what's a normal reaction in a situation. Number four, you become emotionally unpredictable. People don't know what version of you they're going to get. Are you going to be annoyed? Are you going to start crying? Are you going to become the victim in the situation? Are you going to shut down and not engage with them anymore? They don't know what version of you they're going to get. And then number five, you watch this, lean in, lean in. I need you to hear me on this one. You unintentionally punish honesty. You unintentionally punish honesty. People want to be honest with you, but you've taught them that you can't handle their honesty. I'm gonna leave that one alone. Number six, you turn your mind into a replay chamber. Somebody go ahead and say amen. Somebody say, ouch, Robin. You might say, out. The rest of them wasn't me. The number six, Robin, is me. You turn your mind into a replay chamber. I mean, you have replayed everything they said. It's like a snow globe. You've turned their snow globe all the ways and overanalyzed everything somebody said. And so, again, you are self sabotaging your relationships and you're wondering why your relationships are staying on the surface or why it feels like something is missing. Before you start pointing the finger at them, I want you to do a self evaluation. We all need to practice that. Before we begin to blame them, let's do a self evaluation. And so, I know that as I'm talking about this, you're saying, but Robin, I just don't know. How do I know? How do I receive the feedback? How do I know the person isn't coming from me? How do I make sure that I'm open to this? But at the same time, what if somebody is giving me feedback or is telling me something and I just don't agree with it? What do I do? Well, here are the things, the specific things that I do, and I want to share them with you, and I want you to try to practice them, okay? There's six things here too. There are six steps that I take. This is my personal process. This is the process I coach and counsel my clients through. This is the process I talk with my friends. Anybody who knows me personally will tell you I absolutely do this, okay? And so when you are trying to figure out, is this some feedback I need to receive? Do I need to hear this? Do I need to take this in? How do I process this? Number one, you have to do what we call the pattern test, right? In other words, if multiple people have given you similar feedback, that is a pattern. Let me give it to you again. If multiple people, particularly multiple people who don't know each other, are giving you similar feedback, it may be worth paying attention to. That's one of your tests, right? If they're giving you similar feedback. So if person A is saying, girl, because sometimes, honey, when I'm trying to tell you something, you shut down. And then person B is saying, I want to talk to you about something, but please don't shut down. Person C is saying, girl, I ain't gonna tell you that because I don't want you to get upset with me. Well, all three of those people, especially when they don't know each other, if they're giving you similar feedback, it's worth considering. Like you cannot imagine that they've all gotten together in the room and said, okay, I know you don't know me. I know you don't know me, but let's all give Robin this feedback to make sure that she knows we coming for you. Get what I'm saying? So it's called the pattern test. If multiple people who don't know each other are giving you similar feedback, it's worth paying attention to. Number two, the advisory board test. Baby, you need to first have an advisory board, right? And you have to take that feedback to the people who you have given permission to tell you the truth. So you've heard some feedback, you're not sure, you're like, I just don't know if I do. But these need to be people who you have given permission to tell you the truth. Listen, I love you and I love your mama, okay? I love you and I love your mama. But baby, mamas sometimes, I don't, this is not the cross word for all the mamas, but sometimes mamas can't see their babies and they feel like their baby is never wrong. Now, your mama might be a truth teller. Now, some of you, your mama might be going too hard in the paint, okay? But you need to have the people who have proven to be willing to tell you the truth. And so you bring this feedback to them. And I'm talking more than one person. So, for example, I might take this feedback to my husband, but as much as my husband knows about me, as much as he sees me, if my girlfriends are saying something, he may not have experienced me in that way. And so while I need to hear his feedback, he may not have a full picture of me in that way. Can I say this is so interesting because my husband and I have been leading Transforming Faith Church now, the church he pastors, and I partner with him on it for 8 years. And so I now have had a chance to witness my husband in a managerial role. Like he's been in high level leadership positions the whole time we've been married, but I've never been a part of the intimacies of that. And so now I get to observe, I get to see who he is as a intimate leader in a business or ministry experience. And I'm seeing a different side of him, great and areas of growth. And you know, I tell him, I see some great things. I'm like, gosh, I'm so glad you're my pastor. But I also see some areas of growth. And I'm still glad you're my pastor, but I'm sure tell you. And so that's what I mean. Sometimes you got to take it to more than one person that's on your advisory board. And then number three, you have to pause and pray. Pause and pray and ask the Lord specifically, will you shine the light of your truth on my heart and help me see what I can't see? Baby, did you write that down? Lord, will you shine the light of truth on my heart and help me see what I can't see? You have to pray about it, and the Lord will show you. The Bible tells us that He will reveal the places in our heart. And so you want to pray about it. So, number one, do the pattern test. Is this multiple people telling me similar things? Number two, take it to your advisory team. Number three, pray, pause and pray about it. Number four, do an emotional audit. What am I feeling? What am I feeling when I'm hearing this initially? Because if the feeling is very, very intense, that's really worth considering. So you want to do an emotions check. What am I feeling? Even ask yourself, what am I afraid of with this feedback? Okay, number five, you want to do a mirror moment. This is very similar to the emotional audit. And I'm telling you, this is really what I do. Do a mirror moment. If it stings, there might be some truth to it. If it stings, there might be some truth to it. Because if somebody is saying something that's completely out of line, is nothing you've ever considered or heard, you may be, because I would find myself still bothered by it. Like, why would you think that about me? But I wouldn't feel the sting of that comment. So you want to do a mirror check. What is the intensity that you're experiencing? Because it might mean that there's some truth to it. And then lastly, the fruit check. Now, this is the one a lot of people may not like, but I live by this. The fruit check. And I'm saying the fruit of the person giving you the feedback. Because if this person has not proven to be a person that is wise or does their own self work, or that you see the fruit of their life, you might want to hold that opinion lightly. But if this is somebody who has proven to be a person of wisdom, of character, and integrity, and you haven't had any reason to believe that they are ill intended, then you might want to hold it more clearly. Now, The fruit check can be tricky because Sally might give you some feedback and you don't really know nothing about Sally. But remember, we had five other strategies for you to use. So I want you to incorporate all six. Okay. Now that is going for any of us, whether you are the hypersensitive person, or maybe you're the pop off queen, or maybe you're the hyper independent person. That is a strategy you can use, period. But again, today I'm talking to my sensitive girlies who are a lot like me. All right. And so, before we go, I did want to talk about one more thing because I just want to make sure that you're understanding what's happening. You have heard of the fight, flight, and freeze responses. Here is the truth. This happens to us all the time. When you are navigating life with people and just navigating life, when you hear certain things or somebody's bringing something to you and you have an intense response, you might be the fighter, you might freeze, or you might run. That's the flight. You might be the one that's ready to pop back off, or you might freeze and not really engage at all. You shut down, or you might run away from the conversation, fight, flight, or freeze. That is your emotional response and indicates where you still need to improve your emotional regulation. But I want you to pay attention to it. I want you to learn to pay attention. Don't ignore it. I want you to learn to pay attention to it. So the person who fights back, this doesn't have to mean physical. You might snap, you might get sarcastic, you might get defensive. The person who runs, flight, they withdraw, they shut down, they ghost you. The person who freezes, it's like silent stewing, or they don't give you anything. It's almost like they're not even hearing you. They just ignore it completely. All right. And so all of that is critical to you understanding how you show up in those moments. All right. So again, this is not saying that you aren't, or that you are wrong. Hear me. This is, any of this doesn't mean that you are wrong for having deep feelings, especially those of you who are highly empathetic. There is nothing wrong with you having deep feelings, but remember, emotional intelligence is the ability to articulate how you feel and regulate how you feel. You can let it all out, but it matters how you let it all out. And you may not realize that over emoting is impacting others in a certain way. Remember, you know your intention, but you don't know how others are experiencing you. And if you cry every time somebody has something to say to you, if you shut down, if you snap back, if you go off, what you are teaching people is that they cannot engage with you. They might love you, they might still talk to you, but they are self protecting now because everything they say lands with you in the wrong way. Remember our pattern test. If this is happening with multiple people, this might be something that you need to consider. And if you're living with someone, doing life with someone, in relationship with someone who is demonstrating some of these things, I hope this conversation helped you as well. And maybe I do another conversation to help you know how to respond to those behaviors, but I'm going to give you one strategy right now. First strategy, try. Just try to have a conversation. Let them know I really want to be able to tell you the truth about things, but my experience is that I don't know if it's the way I'm saying it. I don't know if it's the way you're hearing it, but is there something we can do so that I can feel more comfortable engaging with you? And then the second strategy, I told you I was going to give you one. Look at you getting two. The second strategy might be you really learning to set boundaries, understanding that it doesn't necessarily mean you got to cut the person off, but it might mean how you engage with them changes drastically. Listen, we can barely control ourselves. We definitely cannot control others. And so that's never the intention. We want to make sure we are elevating not just what we do. I want you to kill it in your career. I want you to walk in your purpose and destiny. I want you to be an amazing friend, an amazing wife, an amazing mother, all the things that you're doing. But I also want you to elevate who you are as a person. I want you to live a life that truly is the life that God had intended for you. Now, have you invested in the Elevate Your Life in 30 days? You haven't, sis. If you've watched this long, you know you need to go ahead and invest and elevate your life in just 30 days. This is a 30-day experience where every day you get a 5-minute audio where I am walking through what it means and how. What it means and how to elevate your life in every area of your life. So make sure you go to robinmayonline.com/30 days. Over here, you're not going to stay the same. Over here, you're going to grow. I'll see you next time, sis.